President Biden is now offering his first reaction to House Republicans' newly opened impeachment inquiry against him. The commander-in-chief finally addressing the inquiry during a closed-door fundraiser in Virginia. He told a room of top Democratic donors, "I don't know quite why, but they just knew they wanted to impeach me, and now, the best I can tell, they want to impeach me because they want to shut down the government. I get up every day, not a joke, not focused on impeachment." And while the president says he is not concerned, White House Press Secretary Kayleigh Jean Pierre sure is working hard to discredit the claims from the House Republicans.
Republicans in Congress, right, they have spent all year investigating the president. That's what they've spent all year doing, and have turned up with no evidence, none, that he did anything wrong. The only reason Speaker McCarthy is doing this political stunt. I'm certainly not going to speculate on what has been a baseless inquiry. There is no evidence. The evidence does not exist, and this is a political stunt.
Can you explain why the president interacted with so many of his son's foreign business associates? More than half of voters told CNN they believe the president was involved and he lied. You can't have a response to that, Karine?
I don't know how you don't go to the former White House press secretary sitting next to me after that.
Well, look, Kayleigh Jean Pierre loves to cite the Hatch Act. Hatch Act, Hatch Act, Hatch Act. She loves to, when asked about Hunter, I would refer you to Hunter's lawyers. She has this diversion strategy. She cannot have a diversion strategy from this point on. There is now a formal impeachment inquiry into her boss. It is real, it's legitimate, and it's not going to carry the day by just repeating no evidence, witch hunt, which, look, President Donald Trump would say witch hunt, but with a litany of points of evidence underneath to prove it was, in fact, a witch hunt. She has to go deeper into that binder. Those tabs need to get a little thicker, the impeachment tab, because the three sentences, the words being given to her are not enough. She's going to have to go point by point. We laid out on this show yesterday 20 pieces of evidence. The House Oversight Committee says they have the phone calls, the dinners. She's going to have to get the wiser on this, because the top line talking points aren't going to cut it in an impeachment inquiry going into next year.
Look, I understand why she's got to be careful, because she doesn't want to get drawn into this case. And the first thing I would ask as an attorney would be, when the language started to change about whether or not the president was talking about business deals with Hunter Biden, and it went from they never talked about it, they never had a phone call, to 20 phone calls, that evidence. And by the way, oh, we did talk, but it wasn't about business. When she inserted herself into the conversation, what happened to the Hatch Act then?
Right. And that's the whole point. The language has changed. The American people have changed in their knowledge about everything as the left-wing media has slowly started to catch up with the inevitable, which is reporting on the mass amount of evidence and the mass amount of questions people have. But as that has updated, her talking points have not. And the irony to me is the fact that the Post called out in that clip, 61% of Americans believe that Joe Biden had an interaction with his son's business dealings and that it was inappropriate. Who's representing who? I applaud the press in that moment for representing the 61% of Americans that have legitimate questions. But who is Kayleigh Jean Pierre representing in that moment? Because the last time I checked, the White House is supposed to be the servant of the people. So if you came to the president and said over half of Americans want to know about this and have legitimate curiosity and questions about this, we demand accountability, sir. And then the White House press secretary just walks away. What kind of service is that? What kind of honor is that? It's because she can't handle it. She has zero training. And unfortunately, she hasn't learned from her predecessors, Kayleigh, because she would learn a lot by looking at your clips. But I find it truly, it is so disheartening. I keep using that word because I keep feeling that way, that the person who is supposed to be the mouthpiece of the White House cares not at all about what true Americans think, but neither does her boss.
Well, look, Doc Siegel, she's serving herself. As I said, she doesn't want to get pulled into this whole thing.
I think there's a better way for her to communicate. The New York Post editorial board had it right. You know, they found the Hunter Biden laptop story, and it's real. And then there's the speakerphone, the president on speakerphone. It's using the influence of the office. They've got to be transparent here. The cover-up is worse than the crime in many cases, going all the way back to when you guys were really young, the Watergate scandal. I mean, the Watergate scandal was about the cover-up. So we all know there's something here. There's a smoking gun here. Trying to obscure it by saying, I don't know what this is about. I'm running the country. I don't know what they're doing. When we know there's actual evidence there. And I'm not an attorney, a great attorney like Emily, but clearly the cover-up can be worse than the crime.
Well, I hope Kayleigh Jean Pierre never says I'm running the country.
Yeah, that's
Michelle?
You know, not only that, listen to this. It's time for the media to do more to scrutinize House Republicans' demonstrably false claims that they're basing impeachment on. We'll forgive the grammatical errors in that sentence, but the other part, it's time for the media to do more. That's a statement from the White House asking the media to look at and scrutinize. Now, it's the media's job to scrutinize the White House and to scrutinize people in power. This statement to me is so telling, and every journalist worth his or her salt should be pointing to this and saying, you don't get to tell me how to do my job. I'm a journalist.
Amen.
So there we
One
go.
quick point
Salt and paprika. And by the way, that's from the council.
Yeah,
That's the White House counsel.
One
That came from the legal side, telling the
craziness.
media what to do.
That's
a great point. So that was Ian Sams, to your point, White House counsel's office. He's the spokesperson. If I'm Kayleigh Jean Pierre, she's White House press secretary, go to Ian Sams' office right now and sit down with him. He put out a 14-page document addressing 7 of the Republican contentions. There are 20. He addressed 7. But sit down with him. Get your facts.
Right.
At least have a rebuttal to Kevin McCarthy and the Oversight Committee.
I'd invite him to the press room since he wants
you
to
go.
talk directly to the media. Bring the counsel with you.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.